to go to a browser and search for Kali Linux, which I'll do that now. So let me go to a browser quickly. And once I'm in the browser, I'll type in Kali Linux. And now we'll search for Kali Linux. And you'll notice the first link here is the kali.org. I'll go there. And notice that this Kali Linux is based on Linux, but is having many security pre-built functions and pre-built add-ons already included within the Linux package. So it is built for security professionals or anyone wanting to test out security. Let's go to the download link, and you'll notice that there are many image files for Kali Linux, the 32-bit, the 64-bit. We want to go for the 64-bit, which is about 3.1 gigabyte. So I'll just click on that, and that will start downloading. It's going to take a little while to download. So while it's downloading, I'm going to pause this particular video and then get back to you in the next video and show you exactly how to install it. So now we've managed to download the Kali Linux ISO file, and we need to start installing that. So what we need to do is, in our VirtualBox environment, we need to start creating a new operating system, a virtual operating system within VirtualBox. So we go to New, and once I go to New, I need to create a name and operating system. So for here, I'll type in Kali, and Kali Linux runs on either a Debian or Ubuntu Linux system. So in the type, we need to select the appropriate options. Because it is based on a Debian or Ubuntu system, we need to make sure that we're very careful in selecting one of these operating systems. So to do that, we need to make sure that we select Ubuntu or Debian, and notice I've selected Linux. Under that version, I've got Ubuntu, but also we have a Debian option here, a 64-bit Debian. But for now, I want to go with a Ubuntu 64-bit option, and I can then simply click Next to go on to the next step. Here we have the option of selecting the memory size. Now, I can select as much as I want, but for this particular exercise, I want to select 1 gigabyte RAM for this particular operating system. We have up to 8 gigabyte on this machine, but 1 gig should be sufficient for Kali Linux. Let's go next. I have the option of selecting a hard disk here. So I'll create a virtual hard disk in this particular exercise because we don't want to create a physical hard disk right now. Just create a virtual one and let's see what happens. Now we have the VDI option, which is the virtual disk image. We have the VM disk option as well, which allows you to have a VMware type operating system. And if you want to go with a Microsoft Hyper-V, you can select this option here. But for now, we want to select the VDI option, and we can proceed to the next step. We want to either select a dynamic or fixed. I will choose dynamic. Now we need to allocate some hard disk space to the Kali Linux installation. It starts from about 4 gigabyte or 8 gigabyte, but we need to firstly save the new virtual hard disk file, and I want to save that in a directory called VirtualBox VMs. So I go to that particular directory, VirtualBox. Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong section here. I need to go to VirtualBox VMs, and there is a Kali directory already there. So I go in there and I save this virtual hard disk file. Once that's saved, I can now allocate the appropriate space. So it's got 8 gigabyte here. I'll change this to 20 to give it some space to use for files that are installed and any applications or any add-ons within the Kali Linux installation. And then I simply hit create, and that should create the system here. Notice now it's been created here on the left hand side. You'll see it's got 1 gig of RAM. Kali Ubuntu 64-bit operating system. It's now also has 20 gigabyte of hard disk space. The next thing we need to do is install the ISO file that we've downloaded previously. To do that, we go to the storage. Notice there's a CD icon here. I can click on that. And I need to find the image file that we downloaded previously. Let me select that file. And you'll note I've got two installations here. I've got a 1.07 and a 2. So 1.07 was a previous release. For this one, we will use the 2. You most likely will have 2 as well. So I click on 2 and I have this refreshed. You'll notice that it's got the location file listed there. I want to go to System and I want to select the processor from 1 to 2 processors. And then there's acceleration. I won't play around with this now. Under the execution cap, I want to leave that at 100% because Kali Linux is resource heavy, so you want to make sure it uses as much as possible. 100% is probably better to leave at that rate. It won't slow you down, don't worry, but just give it as much as you want. Network, we'll use the NAT for now. Later on, we'll show you how to use another Ethernet cable and things like that. But for now, we click on OK, and that's been done. Now we want to begin the actual installation process of Kali Linux. To do that, I click on Start, and you'll notice that a pop-up box appears with the Kali Linux installation process within the screen. Here we go. Now if I click the mouse in here, it takes over that particular machine, so I can use the mouse within that. If I then want to go out of this and go to the host machine, I need to press the right control key to get back to the VM virtual box itself. So now I'll just click on Capture. I have the option here of selecting Live or Install. If I just want to test it out, I'd click on Live. But because we're actually installing this operating system, I'll click on Install, and that will begin the installation process. So let's go through some of the options here. While this is installing, it's going to ask me to select the language. I will select English. Obviously, you can select whatever language that you're comfortable with. But for now, just click on English. I can select the region. Obviously, whichever region you are in, you'd select that. Right now, I'll select United States. Or pretty much any country. Wherever you are, select the country you are closest to. Key map. I'll just select American. That's fine. And that will install a few more things. And we'll just wait now while the installation process runs through. There will be some options for some more settings, but that's the basic setup is happening as we speak. And I'll just wait while this loads up. This is installing on a virtual machine. So let's just go through this. Now I have the option of selecting a host name. It's got Kali as the host name. I can obviously change that if I want to. But for right now, it's fine. Kali is perfectly okay. You select whatever is perfect for you. And then I hit continue. Now, as we go through, we need to select a domain name. We obviously don't have a domain name at this point, so we need to create a domain name. It doesn't have to be anything specific. It can be very generic. So you think of what's useful for you. I'm just going to type in test.local, and that will be what I use for configuring this particular network. I hit continue, and now we get to a password, the root password. You will pick a password that you're going to remember easily, and make sure you write it down somewhere safe so you can come back to it. I'll just type in a password here, and the next step allows me to verify this password. Once I verify this password, it allows me to configure the clock. Obviously, because I selected US time, I can select any of these options. You can come back and change this later on. I'm just going to continue for now. And the next step will be a very important step of the whole process. This is where you partition the hard disk. Now, if you at home don't have a virtual box and are going to use it to dual boot your Windows and another operating system like Kali Linux, you need to be very careful. Because we're using a virtual box, I could use a guided setup, but because I want to show you what would happen if you were doing this at home, I need to go to manual so I can show you how dual boot is possible. So I click on manual here, and that will allow you to do the same at home so you can dual boot different operating systems. Let's go into manual now, and the next step would be to actually partition the hard drive. Now, with that being selected, let's go to the partition mode. I could select any of these options here. Let me just see which one. I'm going to select the middle option here. Just click continue, and that will take me to actually start creating the partition. So create new empty partition table. Yes, I need to click on yes here so I can start creating a new partition table. Now it allows me to select the device where I want to do the partition. I've got 21.5 gigabyte available here on the virtual box. I'm just going to click on this and create a new partition. Now to create a new partition, I can create a 500 megabyte partition on this. This 500 megabyte partition is the boot partition, being the first partition, so it has the boot information to actually system to use and boot up the system correctly. So I select 500 megabyte, doesn't have to be huge, and I click on continue. We'll select primary at this point because operating systems that need a boot drive will need a primary partition setup so that it can boot from that drive. We will select the beginning here, and in here I'm going to select, I think I'll select ext3. I'll explain that in a second. I go to mount point as boot. The rest seems pretty much okay. I'm done setting up the partition, but ext3, older operating systems will have difficulty understanding ext4. The BIOS will have difficulty understanding the ext4. So if you've got an older operating system, it's best to use ext3. If you've got a new operating system, you're more than welcome to use ext4. For now, I'll just use ext3, and I'm done setting up this partition, so I can then move on to the next step. So I click on done setting up the partition. Now we move on to the next step. And here we notice that we've got two partitions. We've got a primary partition of just under 500 megabyte, and we've got this other partition which has 21 gigabyte here. So what we need to do now is create another partition which will be the swap partition. So we do that by going in here and creating that, and this will allow, if the RAM gets a bit low, we can then use the swap partition to allocate some of the RAM to and allow the system to be more stable and not run out of memory. So we create another primary partition here. We go into we want to go and set this as a swap partition. So let me just see where that setting is. Let me go into this ext4 journaling file system and make sure I think I'm in the wrong section. So let me just go back out of this for a second and go into the ext3. Yep, here we are, swap area. I want to create this as a swap area. So this enables that RAM usage if needed to make sure there is a buffer of RAM in the swap area. So I go on and create this. So So now you'll see there are three partitions. There's two primary partitions, one being a boot area, one being the swap area, and the third area is the free space where the data will be located. So I'll just click on this for a second and just make sure that's going to be where all the data is. You'll notice that I need to partition this as well. So create this third partition, which will be 17 gigabytes. Create that as primary as well. And I go in here, I'll select this as ext4. The boot area was ext3. The mount point is fine. All the rest of the settings is fine. And I can go into done setting up the partition. And once I save this, I can now go to three partitions: boot area, swap area, and the free space area. And if I go to finish partitioning and write changes to disk, this will allow me to confirm that. I click on yes. Once I click yes, this will start creating the three partitions and start installing the Kali Linux system. So while this installation is going, this might take a little bit of a while. That means we've partitioned our hard drives correctly. We've got the three partitions: a boot area, a swap area, and a free space area. And I will let this Kali Linux install, and we will see you in the next video. If your wireless card is not detected by Kali Linux, you need to go to the website of the manufacturer of your particular device and get that from there, especially if it hasn't been done with the VirtualBox editions. I've got a short tutorial here of how I'm going to install the wireless access card on my particular machine. So what I'm going to do is copy this and go to this particular git clone link and download that particular driver. Once that's been done, I need to go to a particular folder, which is the MT7601, so CD, and then I also want to go to the source directory, src. So I type in the CD src to get to that folder. Within that folder, you will see that I have the make function, which now will make or compile the libraries that I require for Kali Linux. This is taking that particular file and compiling it so it can be used on my Kali Linux machine. And after that, I need to type in make install, and that will install the drivers on my Kali Linux setup. This might take a little while. It's just compiling the files, and hopefully there are no errors. So if all goes smoothly, we'll be able to type the make install command shortly. So I'm going to give it a few minutes and make sure that all works. So this will enable my Kali Linux to be used via wireless, so I can do some wireless hacking and things like that. So let's go in and type in, I need to make a directory for the wireless directory, but before that I need to make install. So let me type in make install to make sure that all is installed properly. So hopefully that all process is fine. Should take a short while, and then all the drivers are installed correctly. Now I can make the directory, which is mk directory /etc/wireless, to make the wireless directory. And then I go into cprt, this number that I've got here for my particular device, and to that folder to copy this particular file to that particular wireless folder. And once that's done, I'm going to do the function called modprobe. Modprobe basically probes the devices to make sure everything is in place, everything is working. If there are any errors, And hopefully, if I mod probe this device, everything should be fine. If there is a problem, it will report some error. So let's make sure the wireless card or wireless driver has been installed correctly on this Kali Linux machine. Let me type that in correctly, and notice there's nothing that's come up. So let's go to IW config to make sure. Previously there was nothing listed for wireless. Here we go. We've got RA0, which is between ETH0 and the loopback. So I do have the RA link has been set up correctly. So that is good news. So let's go to obviously it's working at 2.4 and working on 802.11n protocols. So let's just confirm that we have wireless connectivity. I go here and notice now it has Wi-Fi. So I will be able to do Wi-Fi hacking, Wi-Fi penetration testing, and things like that shortly. So we've confirmed that we had a wired connection, but now we're able to put in a Wi-Fi connection as well. So I just want to go also to look at IF config. So let's just do that shortly and make sure that we see our devices all listed, the wired connection, the wireless connection, as well as the loopback device. So let me type in IF config and make sure that works. Here we go. So notice there's the wireless card listed here. So that means it's all set up. So we are enabled to do penetration testing and penetration hacking tests. So this is perfect. So let's just ping Google and make sure it is connecting through a wired connection for now, but everything seems to be working fine and we good to go. So in the next videos, we'll start doing the penetration testing and see how to configure Kali Linux perfectly to enable it to be used to start ethical hacking. Now I want to go into installing the build essential and git packages. So I type in apt-get install build-essential and git. Notice that we already have build essential installed and also git has been installed. Both are the newest versions, so that saves us a bit of time in that. So I'll just clear this, and now I want to install the VirtualBox guest editions. Let me go to the appropriate CD-ROM folder, and once I'm in that folder, there's this file called vbox linux editions.run. I'm just highlighting that for you. We need to // and then type in the name of the file, vbox linux editions. It's case sensitive, so that will install the guest editions. This may take some time, again, depending on the internet connection and getting all the appropriate files. That'll take a little while, but these will be essential for the USB wireless card and the drivers. This will also be used for the cut and paste functionality, copy and paste functionality, and also for the overall graphics and the look and feel of the graphics, giving it a better look and feel. So this will just build the guest editions module right now. Should take a short period of time, but it will install fairly quickly. I'm just walking you through this again so you'll see exactly how you will experience the same type of functionality when you're installing the guest module. While that's working, that's done. Now it's just building a little bit of additional share folder support. And once that's complete, we'll reboot the virtual machine and hopefully all the functionality is working fine. So here we go, starting the VirtualBox, and it's installed everything, the graphics components and libraries. So now I can reboot the computer. Once I reboot this, all our services should be functioning as we wish. So let's reboot that. It may take a few minutes or a few seconds, depending on your processor speed. Let's just confirm if the copy and paste functionality is working. So let's go into Kali Linux. Let that load up. I will need to put in my root username and password to log into the system. So let's just wait for that to happen. And here we go. This should boot up now. And once it boots up, we will test the copy paste functionality so you can see how that works. And if it works, root and type in the password that you used to set up the system. Let's go into Kali Linux, and we want to go to the terminal. Let's go into terminal, and once within terminal, we'll just test out the copy and paste function. Let's go to terminal, and within terminal, I'm going to just look up the options here that would be best suited for us. Let's type in ifconfig. Let me copy this section of text and see whether I can copy and paste it into our Windows 10 machine. So that being my host machine, let's just go to Windows 10, and I go to Notepad, and within Notepad, let me paste this. Edit, paste, or Control V, and that works fine. So let me delete this, and I will just type in Windows, and let's see if I can copy this. So Control C or copy, and go into paste, and that works fine. So the copy and paste functionality is working fine, which will enable us to work between the host machine and the guest machine quite easily. Now to just go and get the drivers for the USB wireless card, which we'll do shortly. As you see, there's no wireless listed here, so we definitely need to install the wireless drivers. In this video, I want to show you how we run Nmap as a client on a Ubuntu machine to attack another machine which is running IIS. So in this video, we will demonstrate exactly how that is done. IIS is a web server, so Nmap is going to try and get all the information that is possible from that machine. This is the machine that I'm running here. It's running Wireshark here, so I will be doing a reverse scan as well. I'll explain that in a second, but let's just go to IIS and just look at the local host information. And here you'll see that it's running IIS, as I said, but let's just go and find out how we can find out more information about this machine. So let's go back to Nmap, and from there we'll go and type in some commands and get some data of that particular machine and show you how a hacker would use this information. So I type in nmap, and I want to get a list of all the commands available. So let's just look at the help, and let's see all the commands that are listed here that we can use Nmap for. So I'll explain more on these options later, but for now we're just going to do a demo, and that way you will see exactly how data is obtained by Nmap and how a hacker would use this for personal gain. Now let's type in Nmap, and I need to type -A, and A is to enable OS detection. As I highlight here, it's OS detection and version detection. So that's will tell us what operating system, what version is running, and I'll explain. -O will give me more information about the operating system. So it's more operating system detection as listed here. I also want to put an additional command here, -VV, which will give me a increased verbosity, which will give me an increased data list of exactly what's going on, some more details about what's happening on that particular victim or attack machine. So now let's just go to the IP address. This is the IP address here, 52.32.38.110. Let me confirm that. Yes, that looks fine. So that's the IP address. Now, this is Wireshark. Wireshark also will allow me to see the packets that are coming from the hacking machine. So I want to do a reverse scan. So this is the IP address of my machine that I'm running the Nmap from. So we'll be able to see the packets that are coming through and the packets that are sent from on this IIS machine, and we'll be able to log that. So I'm logging right now with a filter, so it'll only show me packets that have this IP address in the source or destination field. So let's go on to the scan and let's see if packets start appearing. So let me just press the enter key, and once that's done, the scan will start. Here we go. Okay, the scan has started and it's discovering some open ports. It's giving me some pings, some information about what ports have been discovered. There are some TCP ports, and let's just keep going. And if you look at the Windows machine, the IIS machine, you'll notice that there are packets located in the Wireshark. So the packet trace has started and showing me source IP addresses with that IP address, and also destination IP addresses where information is being sent back to the machine running Nmap. Now let the scan continue a bit more. Notice how we've got ports here that are open. There's a 80 port, which is the web port, HTTP port. There's a web server running, so we can tell that by looking at that port. Let's just see what else comes up in the scan. I'm doing this live, so I'm seeing exactly what's going on. It's 54.5% done and tells you a remaining time of how long it'll take to possibly complete. So we'll just wait while that runs. And as that is running, let's talk about some of the other ports. So if you look at some of the ports in that list, we've got 139, 445. If you didn't use the -vv command, you wouldn't get all this detailed information. So using the vv command will give you much more detail than previously recorded. So let's just go through and make sure this finishes shortly. It shouldn't be too long, but let's just see. This is what a hacker would use. They would look at this information, and I'll explain what types of things they would look for to steal data, to find vulnerabilities. So with the ports, port 80 we talked about being a web server. Port 139 and 3389 are for remote desktop. Port 443 is for HTTPS. And what else is there? Let's just keep going. Wait for this to finish shortly. It takes a little while depending on your connection speed and things like that. So it's completed, almost done. So let's just scroll down a little bit. Here we go. It's giving me obviously more details here. Because I've used that VV tag, it's providing a lot more detail. So here I see some interesting things which I'll explain. Now you see this Windows running on this. It shows me the HTTPS port, NetBIOS ports. It also tells me that it has an IIS machine, and if you look up here, 8.5, that being the version. A hacker would look at this information and say, what are the vulnerabilities on an 8.5 IIS machine? And this information is available on the internet. So because of the version number, the hacker could use it to figure out where the the vulnerabilities are and attack the machine based on those vulnerabilities. That's why this information is so powerful, and this type of software is freely available. So let's just keep going, and you'll see that we also have the OS system, which is listed as the OS side of things. Let's have a look, because we asked for the OS scan. Notice how it tells me it's a Windows machine. It's giving me a Microsoft machine. What else is it giving me? Let's have a look here. It's telling me IS server for Windows Server 2012 with this particular standard release. So think about these vulnerabilities are available on the internet for this particular version. A hacker would then use this to go and scan for flaws or vulnerabilities with that particular release. And it's giving me a trace route, so showing me exactly what the trace route looks like. So as you can see, this information, just by running the Nmap software, has given me so much detail that a hacker would use to then find out whether the machine is worth attacking, where the holes are, what is the weakness in that particular system. So as an ethical hacker, you know that by using the software, you can actually find out if there are holes in your network or a client network and figure out exactly how to fix those vulnerabilities. In this video, I want to show you how we use Nmap within the Kali Linux environment. One thing you need to understand is when you're hacking or trying to attack a victim's computer, you need to be very, very careful not to reveal your IP address. By revealing your IP address, not only do you run the risk with the victim's machine, being them identifying you, but your ISP could detect that you are running these scans, and that could open up legal headaches for you and possibly being blocked from using the internet completely from your end with that IP address. So to combat that whole situation, we want to use Nmap in stealth mode. To use it in stealth mode, we need to consider the use of VPN, a virtual private network, or using proxy chains. We will be talking about proxy chains in this series of videos, and we will be using Tor, and I'll explain how Tor actually works shortly. But more importantly, just realize that this video is more to educate you that running Nmap will open up a lot of headaches for you if you are not protecting your IP address. So it is absolutely paramount that you put into place practices to prevent your IP address from being detected by not only the victim or hacking site, but also your own ISP. So I want to quickly run a traceroute command to show the way the packets from my computer go to this IP address, which is 8888, that being a Google IP address. Basically what we're showing here is the way the information would go from my computer all the way through all these different hops to get to the final destination. When you're using Nmap and you want to protect your information online, you don't want this to be visible to public. You want to make sure your information is protected, and that's where the use of VPNs and proxy chains are so important, because these hops would all be different if you use a VPN or by using a proxy chain. So in this video, I want to discuss IP addresses with you and show you how to protect your IP address online. So the first thing we want to do is go to the normal browser in Kali Linux. So let me just minimize that. Go to iceweasel, which is the browser within Kali Linux. And I want to go to whatismyip.com. And once here, it's going to show me my IP address of this machine. This is an IP address of this particular machine. You don't want to be scanning anyone with this particular address. You want to be very cautious to protect yourself online. So make sure this is not visible. We will need some additional applications, one being called Tor, and I'm going to get that now, and I'm going to type in apt-get install, and I need the installer for Tor. So installer, I'm sorry, it's supposed to say install. Let me just go to install and then type in Tor. So once that's done, if it's already installed, it will tell me that it's already there. Right now, it says it's already the newest version, but if you haven't got it pre-installed, you will need to install this before anything else. So once you've got that in place, Tor is installed. Now we type in service Tor start, which will start the Tor service. Once that's started, we type in netstat to see if this service is running. Netstat-nut-p, and that will tell me all the active internet connections available on this PC. The first line tells me that Tor is already running, so that's good that it is running. So now we want to just check the proxy chains. So let me go to this proxy chains file, and where we can install different proxies within that particular file. So I'll explain all that now, but let's just go to proxychains.conf. Once I go to that file, you will see that I can use Nano as well to edit this file. And notice how there's dynamic chain. A dynamic chain allows me to basically, if I have a list of proxies, it will basically take one at random. So every request that I send will be from through a different proxy. And that's the way it works. So that's how you can set it up. So that way you are protected that every request is potentially coming from a different proxy. Now we've got strict chain. Obviously there's lots of different things here you can do. This will be a strict chain. So it'll be depending on the exact proxies, it will work one by one and request in that specific order. So here under DNS, I would suggest that you put in the proxy DNS entry if it's available. So if you do have it, make sure you use it. Now, if I scroll down a little bit more, you will see at the bottom of this page is this line which says SOX4 with 127.0.0.1 9050. That's the default setting for Tor. So if you have any other proxies that we'll show you in a second, you will just paste it at the bottom of this line, and that will help you with proxy chain setup in this particular file. Now let's just go to let's see what I can show you now. So yeah, as you can see, this is running and that's definitely working. So we're good to go for that particular Tor setup. We've already seen the setup of the Iceweasel browser, but let's just go back to the browser using proxy chains. So I type in proxy chains, Iceweasel, and that will open up the browser with proxy chains, and hopefully proxy chains will then give us a new IP address. So let's just do that. Notice the browser's opened up. Let's go in and type in whatismyip.com, and this should give me a different IP address. Oh, it's giving me the same IP address. And the reason for that is I most likely have had the browser still running before I set up proxy chains. So let me just close everything down. Let me close the browser. And if I close the browser, I will restart that. So let's just close the browser completely. And now when I type in proxy chains iceweasel, that should fix that up. So let me close all the options. Let's type in proxy chains iceweasel, and let's just see if this is fixed now. So let's wait for the browser to open, and notice now if I type in what is my IP, and let's see what my IP address is. Notice now my IP address is 45.56.90.85. So obviously the other one had 100 and something. This is 45. It has changed my IP address. So proxy setup has worked. Now I also want to show you a few other things, which is where to get proxy server addresses from. So notice how the Tor is actually using these different IP addresses to send my requests through. The worst thing that can happen is you are detected by the hacking victim or security department or your ISP, so you don't want to run the risk, and that is why we use something like Tor. Now, proxy chains enable us to hide our IP addresses quite nicely. Just be cautious though, packets sent from your computer will have your IP address included in it, so you want to protect yourself. You can add more proxies by going back to the proxy chains conf file, and as you scroll to the bottom you can add more proxy here. Now the way you get more proxy addresses is you can go back to a browser and type in hidemyass.com. So I'll just type that in here. And when I go to this page, there are some good proxies available here. A list of proxy servers are available, and they keep them fairly up to date. So if I scroll down, you will see a list of IP addresses for the proxy addresses. So I can select all countries, select your specific country. I can select ports. I can choose the protocols, anonymous levels. I just want SOCKS 4 and SOCKS 5 because it's only for command line interface. So I don't need the HTTP. So SOCKS 4 and SOCKS 5, I need the anonymity to be at least from low onwards. Everything else seems okay. So let me go and do a search, update results. Once I update the results, you'll notice that all the list of IP addresses are here. So IP addresses and ports and the location. And how you do that is where it says SOCKS 4 and IP address and the port number, you would look at the list. I'll just show you an example. So I would take the IP address here, use this port, and I'll use SOCKS 4 as the connection. So that would make the list populated. You can add more IP addresses and just keep going and keep adding more IP addresses in there. So now we've seen how proxy chains are used with iceweasel, and basically command wise all you need to do is type in proxy chains and the program that you want to run, and that's as simple as that. So proxy chains iceweasel would open up iceweasel with proxy chains, and if you're using nmap, we type in proxy chains nmap, and that would enable proxy chains in nmap as well. Now that nmap has run completely, we can go in and see which ports are actually open. You'll see port 53, which is open. That is for a DNS server. We also have port 25, which is the SMTP port, and most likely an email server is running on this machine. POP3 again, which is also for email server. Let me clear this page, and as you can see, a number of ports have been displayed. You'd also have seen that there was some filtered ports. We will need to do a further scan, which is called a SYN scan, which I'll discuss in the next lecture of how we do a SYN scan to find more information. So let's discuss fin scanning. Fin scanning works by sending a packet from our machine to a victim machine, and the victim machine has either an open port or closed port. If there's a closed port, it should send a reset packet to our machine. So a closed port will respond with a reset packet. An open port, however, will just drop the packet and absolutely do nothing. So that way, there will never be a TCP type connection or any IDS detection, intrusion detection, etc. will not be picked up, will not be logged, etc. So let's do a nmap with a fin scan. So -s, and I use the F tag, a capital F. So this way we can scan our machine, victim machine right now. Notice I'm not using any proxy chains because this is a machine that's within a closed network. If you're ever running a scan outside on a overseas computer or any other machine, you want to make sure you use proxy chains. And please understand this activity is illegal in most countries, so you want to be protecting yourself at all situations. So let's do the scan on this particular machine. And the fin scan is actually a stealthy option. So if you want to keep under the radar, a fin scan is probably the way to do it, although it's not 100% reliable. So let's do a scan on this machine and let's see what it finds. So it started, and let's just wait and see the results. As I said, it's not 100% accurate a lot of the time. It depends on the machine that we're scanning. As you'll see here, all 1000 ports are scanned and it's showing as closed. Now this is not accurate, and that also depends on the machine you're running this on or the machine that you are scanning. So there's lots of variations here. So let's try another scan, this time the Christmas scan. Now the Christmas scan works on the basis that it has all 3 flags up, lit up like a Christmas tree. So that's the whole reason why it's called the Xmas scan. So let's change this to an X, and this means that the fin, urgent, and the push flags are all up. So if they're all set up and lit up like a Christmas tree, that's why it's called Christmas scan. So let's try this scan now and see what it results and gives us the results. It started again. Let's just see what it finds. Again, it's saying that all ports are closed. Now I'm leaving this video in because a lot of the time you will find these types of results. So I want to show you some results. So what I'd like to do is scan another machine, and given that I don't have another PC here right now, I'm going to scan my Kali Linux machine. So let's do the scan on our Kali Linux. So let's open another terminal window and let's do a nmap scan with the fin scan, and we will do SF, and I will put it as 127.0.0.1. Now let's see what happens. Notice now it has got some results. It shows that this port is open and Tor is running on this particular port. So that's good. Now let's go and do a Christmas scan with an X, and let's see what that shows. Again, it's showing that same port with Tor running on this particular machine. So as you can see, the Christmas scan and the fin scan do work. It is a lot of trial and error, and I've left this in so you can see what type of results you may get. Don't get frustrated. Eventually you'll find a machine that this type of scan will work on. And the beauty about this is it stays under the radar. It keeps you hidden in a sense because no intrusion detection scanning system will pick this up. In this video, I want to show you how we use nmap to detect the operating system. To do that, we need to go nmap minus capital A, which is the option to find the operating system. And then I type in the address of the machine that I want to scan. Again, this is I'm not using proxy chains because this being a closed network. Let's start this, and you'll see that once it starts, it will do a ping scan, and then it'll do a SYN stealth scan, followed by a server scan, and then finally the operating system scan. So while this is running, you'll see that it's finding more things. It's detecting what's available, what ports are open, everything that I need, and it'll give me quite a bit of results that we'll navigate through after the scan is complete. As you can see, this is filling up the page. The SYN scan is almost finished, and then we'll go into a server scan. Once the server scan starts, it won't be long before we will start the operating system detection scan. So as you can see, it's 99.99% complete, almost done. Now the server scan has started, and let's see how this finishes up. There we go, 90.91%. It's looking for the services available on this particular port and finding up what we can about the particular machine. Now we'll continue. Shortly it'll finish, and then we'll go into the operating system detection scan. Now let's just wait. You will find that you'll be waiting for short periods of time, sometimes quite long periods. As you can see, it's finished, so it has found all the information that we need. Now we'll navigate through the information to see exactly what we want to find. So let's scroll through this particular information that Nmap has found during the operating system detection scan. As you'll note here, let me just highlight this for a second, and you'll see there's a port that's open which is running FTP. As I scroll further down, you'll see there's a SSH port as well, running 4.3 version, and it's also showing a VSFTP, which is the 2.0.5 version. So as you can see, this information has been found. It tells me some more information about another HTTP port, which is running Apache 2.2.3 and the CentOS operating system. So if there are any vulnerabilities for this particular operating system, we can research that and look at what operating system vulnerabilities there were. So as I scroll down, you see MySQL is there. If I go further down, we'll see that Linux kernel 2.6 and 2.6.18 to 2.6.32. So any vulnerabilities for this particular Linux kernel can be found, and then we can use that to exploit this machine. As we go further, there's another IP address being detected, 10.10.10.30. As I scroll down, it tells me it's a HTTP port with running IIS. It then also tells me there are some open ports here, IIS 10 as well, so we can see if there are any vulnerabilities for IIS 10. There are some open ports here. Let's look for the operating system, because this will tell us exactly what operating system is. So let me scroll down and let's look through the rest of the information if I can find the operating system. It tells me Microsoft Windows, tells me Windows here, and it tells me Windows 98. Now obviously this machine is not a Windows 98 machine, it's running Windows 10. So let me just see if I can find where it tells me Windows 10. In fact, if you just look at the bottom here, it tells me Windows 10. So let's go down to the bottom, and as you can see, Windows 10 Pro version 6.3. We can then use this information to find vulnerabilities for this particular version of the operating system. So as you can see, this is what Nmap has been able to detect for us, and we've seen with this Nmap scan that there are two operating systems running, one being the CentOS operating system and also Windows 10, and all this has been obtained by using Nmap with the capital A command. Another tool we can use for footprinting is the Whois tool. Whois will give us information like who's registered the website, where it's been registered, which date this expires, the registration for the domain name expires, addresses, telephone numbers, etc. So we type in whois, and let's look at cnn.com to see what information is available. So we type in cnn.com, and once we let this run, it should give us quite a bit of information, and I'll walk you through that information shortly. Sometimes it may take a little while depending on your internet connection and depending on the proxy settings, etc. Okay, so that scan has been completed. Let's just go back to the beginning so we can actually see what information is available. So if you look here, it tells me the server name, and the server is owned by Guli.com. It gives me an IP address. It tells me who the registrar is. So this is with a actual registrar. This is the registrar's website and information. It then tells me something more about the Instra Corporation, which is the company that it registered with. It tells me some domain registry information. If I scroll down, let's try and find some important data here. It tells me some name server information, which you can then use and see what else is available. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Scroll down and you'll see the last update to the database. Scroll further down. Here we go. So it tells us the domain name. It gives us an email address of the domain business, possibly a contact number for any abuse, etc. And tells me that the email address is here, which again looks like a domain company that this email address belongs to. Further down, you will see there's some information about, this is basically the domain name registrar, etc. Further down, you'll note that the expiry date here, which tells us when this domain name expires. So if you're doing a whois lookup on a domain name, sometimes smaller companies may let domains go and be deregistered. So domain scalpers can come in and buy these domain names up and then charge crazy prices for the actual owner to get them back. So just understand that this information is very valuable in the right hands. So here we see the address of the expiry being in 2018. A domain like cnn.com will definitely not let this domain name expire, but it just goes to show that this information is available. As I scroll down, we see the organization name, we see the address of the cnn.com, where the street address and the city, which is Atlanta, the state being Georgia. It tells us the postcode, phone number, fax numbers, email address that we can use later on for certain exploits. But as you can see, quite a wealth of information that's all listed here. So this is a whois lookup that gives you a wealth of information. The email addresses that we find in this particular whois lookup can later on be used for exploits such as malware attacks, where we can launch a malware attack and hopefully infect a computer and then infiltrate a network. But I'm not saying that's what we're going to do. This is just an example to show you exactly the types of things and information that is available for our use. Another tool I want to show you is actually a website called mxtoolbox.com. This site will provide quite a bit of information for free. So if I type in cnn.com in this particular line, we can find quite a bit of information that we most likely had obtained with the command line interface, but this will give us the results in a web browser. As you can see, it's found all the email servers as we had previously obtained, but it gives this information to us in a nice view and easy to access information. I can check if they have any blacklisted websites. So if you have a client and you want to check if their email server has been blacklisted anyway, you can use this tool to quickly check if that website has been blacklisted. As you'll see, there are quite a number of sites that are blacklisted, but our email server will hopefully not be on this particular list. So if you're doing it for a client or for your company, you can check if your site has been blacklisted here. So especially if email servers are blacklisted, we can do something about it, but this site provides that information very, very quickly. This website has quite a few tools that are available to us. So if I scroll back up, you will see that we can do some diagnostics as well. So we've looked at the blacklists as here, but the diagnostics, we can check the SMTP diagnostics. So we can check any mail server diagnostics if we want. I can type in cnn.com and I can test the email server to see what information is available for that particular email server. So it can sometimes take a little while because it is querying the website. But as you can see, there are so many other options here. If I go to the DNS lookup, you will see that I can type in the domain name and it will hopefully give us the DNS information for this particular website. If I scroll down, as we had obtained earlier, it's given us this information as well. So it's found the A records for cnn.com and very, very quickly as well. So if we then go to look up the reverse lookup, I can go to reverse lookup. So if I had an IP address, it could then find us the information about the website associated with it if I had only an IP address. If I clicked on more, notice all the other options we have here. We have blacklist, we have MX functions, we have the A records, SMTP, whois, DNS, so much more information. Again, just put in the SMTP information in this box and you can scan straight from this particular web page. All the tools are displayed nicely on one page. I can then go further down and see the scan. It's got the whois lookup. I can type in cnn.com here and it will give me whois information about cnn.com. Just give it a few moments and it will return with some whois information, which we could then use for exploitation attacks because sometimes email addresses are listed there. So just understand that all this information is available just by using this particular website. What is my IP? We can check HTTP sites. We can do pings, traces. Okay, as I scroll through with the whois lookup, this is the information for cnn.com. And as you can see, it's not given me too much. So let me just go and see what else we can find on this page. Not too much, but let's just see if I go back up to the top and click on the whois lookup again. Let's see if there's any more information obtained. Now it looks about the same. What we can see here under whois, that this cnn.com is owned by this guli.com. I could also do a whois lookup on the guli.com website later on to see if any other information is available. So as you can see, this has given us quite a wealth of information already. If I go again to the more command and let's see what else I can show you on this particular tool. Scroll down and let's look up the scan option here. I can scan for cnn.com and see what open ports there are available. As I scroll down, it will show me the ports. You'll see that the HTTP port is open. Lots of others are filtered or closed. If I go back to the more option, and you will see, let me see which option I can show you as well. There's obviously a DNS option up there. There is the what is my IP we talked about earlier. You can even look for the location of where this particular machine is. The IP address, as I talked about earlier. There's a TCP option, which will allow me to see the port status. So I can type in cnn.com here. This might take a little while to find the port status, but I've just noticed that there is a small glitch in what I've done. I've put in a web address, cnn.com, but if you look at the blue section just above here, it asks for an IP address and a port address, which means that I need to put it into IP address and port address options. So let me go back to, even if I use cnn.com here, it's not going to work. So let me find the IP address. Let me take this IP address. I think this address won't work either. So let's go back to Kali Linux itself. And if I can get to Kali Linux, I can do the ns lookup again and get the IP address. So let's type in ns lookup and cnn.com. And let's get the IP address. Okay, so let's take this address here with the 25. Let's copy that. Let's go back to a browser and I can paste it in here and do a TCP lookup. I need to add the port. Let's put port 80 and let's see what it finds. Yes, you can see some TCP connect information. So a TCP connection has been made with this particular IP address and that particular port. If I go further down, I can see some other options. Let's go to the, as you can see, password generator, email user list, bulk lookup. There's a lot of options available here. You can extract emails. Let's look at the email user list. As you can see, I can upload a CSV file here. We don't need to worry about this particular section right now. Just want to give you an idea that this website does give us a lot of options, and I encourage you to test it out at your leisure. You can bulk look up IP addresses, see what IP address information is obtained, email extraction. You can extract emails from a text file. It will search the text file and find email addresses. We've got, again, a lot of options here. And I encourage you again to test this website out and use it to figure out what options are available, what vulnerabilities are available, what ports are open, and give you quite a bit of data. Now, another website for footprinting I wanted to show you is called robtex.com. So let's go to robtex.com right now, and I'll explain to you how this all works. This is robtex.com. If I scroll down, you will see the site has changed a little bit. It looks like this is a new version of the site. So let's go back to this host name IP number box and let's type in cnn.com and let's see what information it gives us. So cnn.com, and let's go scrolling to the bottom. It will tell us all these similar websites. So it shows you cnn.com. It also shows you other name variations like cnncom.com. This could be useful in an attempt, for example, if you are going to register a very similar domain name as close to cnn.com. This gives you an idea of what's available, what's not available, so you can determine which website to register. And there are some other reasons why you would want that. Once I go into cnn.com, it tells me that it has 2 IP addresses. If I scroll down, it will tell me when this was modified last, when it was last checked. It tells us the IP addresses, which we had found with the command line interface anyway. It tells us the name server information as well. As we can see, it's ns1.timewarner.net. So this is a Time Warner linked website. It tells us mail service, which we had found earlier as well. It also shows me more information about name servers. Also, it tells me something interesting here. I'll talk about the graph in a second, or the map actually. There are 50 domains that are on ns1.timewarner.net. So it tells us that there are about 50 domain names here, which is quite useful, especially when you're trying to map out an organization or map out a network. This gives you a good grasp of what's available. It tells us also that all these IP addresses point to an IP group 1, a mail server group 1, name server, and this is the diagrammatic representation of what it's been able to find for us. As you can see, it starts off with cnn.com, and all these are the name servers sitting on there with the A record IP addresses. It tells us that where it's pointing to, it shows us some broadcast servers as well. And as you can see, this is very, very useful, especially for mapping out a network. It's showing us the DNS records, some more information about the website, some reverse records as well. As you can see, very, very useful information that we could then use later on. If I go to forward, let's have a look at what's in forward. As you can see, more DNS record information. Under graph, you will see that graph again, or the diagram representation of the website that it's found for us. So we can use this in our footprinting exercise that we can use later on for exploits, etc. I want to introduce you to Nessus, which is a port scanner and vulnerability scanner. We will look at how to install Nessus on Kali Linux, and we'll also look at how we can use it to find ports and find vulnerabilities. In this video, I'll show you how we can go and browse to the Nessus website. So just to give you an idea, the whole idea behind Nessus is it is an information gathering tool. In the hacking world, we use terms like dumpster diving, social engineering. It's basically information gathering to figure out where we should focus our energy when we know the vulnerabilities. Once you understand where the vulnerabilities are, we can then exploit those. And Nessus allows you to find those just by running a tool from your PC. So in this video, I want to go and open a browser and then go to the Nessus website and show you how you can actually install Nessus, which version to download, and how to actually go about installing it. So firstly, we want to open up our browser, and once we have the browser window, we'll then go and find the Nessus tool. Before we go on to install Nessus, I just want to explain dumpster diving a little bit. It's like someone going through the trash from a business to find names, find email addresses, find things that would be useful to gain access to that business. So this Nessus allows us to do that via an online means. Let's go and open a browser, and we will then find the Nessus website. So let me type in Nessus here, and we will then be shown some website links. I'll scroll down and find the website from Tenable. We go to the Tenable website, and we'll see that Nessus is a vulnerability scanner and involved in network security. There are a few versions of Nessus. There's a free version and a paid version. We will be using the free version in this exercise, so most people can get a feel for how Nessus actually works. So I click on products, I scroll down, and there's a link to Nessus. I click on that. We have Nessus for the cloud. In this case, we're going to use the desktop tool, which we will be using to install on Kali Linux. So let me just scroll down to find where that link is, and you'll have to do the same thing. Where you see it says try Nessus, get a free trial for your organization. I will click on this link and it will take me to the page where I will then be able to evaluate Nessus. Here we have Nessus Manager and Nessus Cloud. I will click on Nessus Manager. So both versions are available, but in our case, because we want to install it on Kali Linux, we want to go with the Nessus Manager product. So it's easy to install and everything is handled by Kali Linux on our machine. So here we have the option of evaluating Nessus. I will skip this part where we've got to put our first name, company name, and things like that. But when you want to register your interest in the Nessus product, you would have to fill in this information and then get an evaluation copy. I'll skip the registration process for now, but in the next video you'll see how we have Nessus and how we can then install it on our Kali Linux machine. Let's use the harvester on lenovo.com and let's see what results it gives us. So it's searching Google right now, and let's see if it does give us the results that we like. As you will see here, it's found some email addresses which we can later use for exploit attacks. We could use it for phishing attempts, for spamming attempts, a number of different options available with email addresses, which we'll cover later. But as you can see, it's found a few email addresses. It's found particular web links as well. And while it's searching Google, it's found IP addresses for us, different host information, and again, very simply obtaining information